Hi everyone, this is Valerie, and today we're going to do a review on therapeutic sensory brushes. I have 3 of them right here. So many of you who have a child with sensory processing disorder have been introduced to the Wilbarger protocol. And this protocol most recently has had a name change to Deep Pressure Proprioceptive Technique, or for short, DPPT. Now, most of us don't call this technique DPPT, but we call it brushing. I'm not here to review the deep pressure proprioceptive technique, but rather to review the brushes that are used in the Wilbarger or DPPT technique. If you have a child with sensory modulation disorder, you have probably been introduced not only to the technique, but also to the brushes that are used in the technique. Now, if you've watched any of our YouTube videos or read up on sensory modulation disorder, you know that that's a disorder that occurs when children have difficulty regulating or controlling their responses, both in the nature and the intensity of their responses to sensory input. Now, whether that sensory input is movement or touch, what they hear, so auditory, or what they see, it's usually that response to that input that indicates to us that our child is having trouble grading or adapting their responses to the sensory input in their world. Now, something that you may not know is that the brushing or the DPPT program was developed by a clinical psychologist and an occupational therapist, Dr. Patricia Wilbarger. She recommends that families or caregivers who are using this technique be guided by a professional, and usually a lot of times that's an occupational therapist, who is knowledgeable or trained in the technique. So, if you do have an occupational therapist who is helping you with the brushing program, then you've probably been given a brush by that person, whether you bought it or they gave it to you. So when I do a review for a product, I try to get online and see what you, the parents or the caregivers, have said about the product. This time I didn't see any strong opinions about any of these 3 brushes, but rather what I did see, so I know you're going to buy them, what I did see is that you all expressed that having multiple brushes in the child's world or environment was important to the success of being able to implement or do the program. So it appears that that meant having one in the diaper bag, maybe in your purse, in the car, as long as it doesn't melt, in the child's daycare, possibly in the child's school, maybe in the child's room. All of those locations, if they were there, it made it easier for you to be able to implement the program. If you're familiar with the actual protocol, it calls for doing brushing at least or approximately every 90 minutes to 2 hours. So I couldn't agree more. Having multiple brushes around the house is crucial to the success of this program. I have not used this program just as an occupational therapist in a clinic, but actually as a mother. I am still finding brushes all over my house, even though my children are semi-grown. There are 3 brushes really available to you, and I want to look at durability, feel, as well as price, even though we know that price changes. So there are 3 types of brushes, and 2 of those brushes are surgical brushes. So the first one is what I call the rectangular brush, and you can see the back side of it. And this is a surgical brush. The other brush you can actually see in the package. It's the oval brush. And you can even see that there's a little utensil here to clean your nails. And then the last one is the TheraPressure Therapy Brush. And this one is designed by Patricia Wilbarger herself. The first brush we'll look at is the rectangular brush, so also one of the surgical brushes. You can find this brush most reasonably, of course, on Amazon. It also can be found on a website called Fun and Function, which, by the way, if you haven't discovered, is a great website for sensory-related products. However, overall, these three brushes were always cheapest on Amazon as far as I could see. So if you got on Amazon, you would find that you could get 6 brushes for approximately $8. So not a bad deal. A brush for $1.50. However, there's one aspect of this brush that you may find important, or you may not, is that this brush doesn't have a handle. You can see this back is sort of begging for a handle, I would say. And there are handles that can be purchased, and you can find those also on Amazon for approximately $1 each, or 4 for $4. Of course, prices change. The thing that I find here is that all of a sudden, if you have to or if you need a handle, and that's important to you, the person who's brushing the child, then all of a sudden you have a more expensive brush, which is more in line with these brushes, for $2.50, and you actually have only 4 brushes rather than 6 brushes that can be used. It's not so much of a deal anymore. So the brush that I have used most frequently is the double-sided oval brush, sensory brush. And you can get these at Fun and Function for a 3-pack for about $8 and a 10-pack for about slightly more than $26 on Amazon. So you can see that the price is comparable if you add the handle to the rectangular brush. Now, a 10-pack on Amazon may sound like a lot, like there's no way you're going to need that many, but you have to think about all the environments that your child's in. The other thing you have to think about is losing one of those brushes. So there have been many stories, or many times even, that I have gone to a house and the brush has been lost and the program has fallen apart. So you have to think about if your child is liking the brush, they may want to play with the brush. There's one story where I had a little boy who decided that he needed to brush the dog, and it wasn't too many months later that the brush was found in the dog house. So you can see that a lot of brushes is not a bad idea. So the third brush is really the Mercedes of the brushes, and this was the one that was designed by Patricia Wilbarger. And it's called the Wilbarger Method TheraPressure Therapy Brush. And this brush also can be found on Amazon, 2 for $7, so slightly more expensive, but you can also find it for 6 for $22. This makes it slightly over $3, but again, prices can change. But I guess the loaded question would be then, is this brush worth the extra money? And that's what we're going to look at next. So, with the rectangular brush, my experience is that its durability is about the same as the double-sided oval brush. However, this brush is a little bit of a stiffer brush, and when it ages, it's even more stiff. So you have to think of it sort of as, it's not scratchy, but you have to think of it more as a feeling of being scratched in a good way, like a back scratch. And when it gets stiffer, it can be a little bit less acceptable to the feel. The other thing about this brush, and this is really just a looks thing, but it tends to be the one that's going to yellow when it gets older. A good sign may be to throw it away anyhow and get a new one. The other thing that you have to consider besides durability for this brush is that it is smaller. So this brush, 3.5 inches by 2 3/4 inch. This one, 3 inches by 1.5 inches. What you might want to consider is that when you're trying to brush your wiggly little boy or girl and you're trying to get it done quickly, the little more surface area, which is what you're going to get here between these two brushes, is going to maybe help you do it more quickly. Is that a word? Is that although it's called the double-sided sensory brush, It in fact has only one side that you should use, and you can see that the bristles here on this side are evenly distributed with a small depression right there, and that is the side that you should use. The other side actually has quite a large depression that makes a line down the middle of it. If you use this side, then you are giving uneven pressure to your child's skin and not distributing even input across their skin. And that's not really desirable for this program. So when you're making a purchase, don't think that you're getting a 2-for-1 on this brush. And they don't say that in the description at all, but it could be thought of that way when you're making your purchase. The other thing to know about this brush, it is the softer of the two, and that may be more acceptable for your child. However, the program is really designed, or the firm pressure is desirable for this technique. And that's why the Wilbarger made her brush much more firm. So the last brush is the Wilbarger Method TheraPressure Therapy Brush. It was designed by Wilbarger herself, and she advocates the use of it because she feels that the high density bristles of the brush are ideal for the use in the program. Now, additionally, a benefit of this brush is the design of the handle. It's ergonomically designed to be kind to the hand of the individual who is brushing. The other thing about this brush that I want to comment on is its durability. I don't have a lot of experience with this brush. It's relatively new compared to the other brushes, and I have not been able to use it over time. So I guess the question about this brush, is it worth the extra money? It is $3.50 approximately. Of course, again, prices change, but I want to just tell you what I like about this brush. First of all, the handle is nice, but not necessary. But the bristles themselves, the high density of the bristles, are really ideal for this program. You can see the bristles are evenly distributed. They have that nice balance between softness and firmness. And that's really what you want for this program. This is a program that depends on deep pressure for effectiveness, and this brush provides that. So I would say if you could afford the extra money, then this brush is definitely worth that extra change that you spend. However, if cost is an issue, and I do advocate just as strongly having multiple brushes so that you can be effective with the program, then you may want to consider these other brushes. They do the job, and they do it well. So I hope this product review of sensory therapy brushes helps families who are trying to help their children play, learn, and grow in a world that sometimes is not easy for them. The Wilbarger, or technique, or otherwise called brushing, DPPT, has been around for many years, and although the research is still emerging on it, therapists and families say that it has been beneficial for their children. But again, that's not for all children, and so I would encourage you to rely on the help of an occupational therapist to guide you through this technique.